Milo, is that you?
There, I think I got it. Okay, this is it. This is the first podcast since the last podcast. This is our third attempt at this. We've had a lot of pre-show meetings. We've been in the boardroom all afternoon trying to figure out what we're going to do here. But I'm with Adam Pinales, and we're going to talk about the big boy and the whole experience, because the whole rail fanning world, model railroading world was talking about the big boy. Going from Cheyenne, is that how you say it?
Cheyenne,
Wyoming to Ogden, Utah. And we talked with Otto Vondrak and Chris Stilson, who never got on the trip, and didn't even get a free coat or nothing, or T-shirt or nothing from Otto. And we talked with Bruce Wilson and you, and we had a general discussion about it. But I felt like afterwards, if you and I had just talked, we could have maybe filled in a lot of the blanks about what the big boy is and all that stuff. So, first off, what day did you go? Actual day did you go?
I went up on Wednesday, and Wednesday was the day that it came in from the last leg of its trip, and I believe that was the 8th, May 8th.
Okay, so we're talking with Adam Pinales, who's a conductor with Amtrak and on the California Zephyr from Salt Lake City to Grand Junction, Utah. Like, one question I had last night was you were talking about you took the day off from what did you call the trip coming back? The Willet or something?
Oh, my Winnemucca trip. I go out to Winnemucca, Nevada. Salt Lake to Winnemucca is the first trip of the week, which is where I'm headed tonight.
Oh, do you do 2 trips a week?
Yeah, I go westbound 1 trip and then 1 trip eastbound. So tonight I'm going to Winnemucca, Nevada. I'll spend all day Thursday there and come back Thursday night and get home early Friday morning. And then early Saturday morning, I'll take off out of Salt Lake City and get to Grand Junction, come home Sunday night.
So Winnemucca is what, west, and Grand Junction is east? Is that the idea?
Yeah, Winnemucca is about 400 miles west of here. It's about an hour and a half this side of Reno, Nevada.
Okay, see, now I didn't even realize you were doing 2 trips a week. I thought you were just doing 1 trip a week to Grand Junction and back.
Oh man, I wish. That'd be great.
Yeah, no kidding, eh? So you go. So 1 trip you go west to Winnemucca, Nevada. I've never even heard of Winnemucca. How big is it?
It's just a little dusty spot in the road.
What kind of hotel do they put you up there?
A little dusty spot in the road. There's a couple little casinos there. I mean, it's just a little gambling town, just a little mining town. Johnny Cash sings about it in one of his songs.
That's right.
You know, it's yeah.
He's been everywhere, man, and one of the places he's been is Winnemucca.
That's right.
Huh. How about that? All right. See, now, already we've learned something. Already we've learned something. Okay.
Yeah, but that's not worth knowing. You can forget that and you'd be all right.
It's worth knowing if you're a rail fan, which is pretty much all the people that listen to this show are rail fans of some sort or another.
So, rail fan wise, it's kind of cool because that's right where the Western Pacific and the Southern Pacific split is pretty much they go across the desert all but next to each other from Winnemucca all the way into just about Salt Lake City. Outside of Salt Lake City, they split again, but at Winnemucca, the Western Pacific jumps north a little bit and heads through the Feather River Canyon, and the Southern Pacific heads on through Reno up over Donner Pass.
Okay, so now Western Pacific, Southern Pacific, and what rail line are you on?
We do both. When it usually depends what line they route us on, but we're usually head westbound on Main 1, which is the old, oh man, I forget. I believe it's the old Southern Pacific, and the eastbound Main 2 coming back is the WP, if I remember right.
All right. And it's okay. So just for people that aren't, we have people all over the world listening. So our Southern Pacific and Western Pacific, are they still running?
No, gone.
Yeah, exactly. So what are they running? What are you running on? Actual Union Pacific trackage?
Union Pacific track, yes.
Okay, but it's the old Southern. When did Southern Pacific and Western Pacific disappear off the face of the planet?
So Western Pacific was 84. It was either 82 or 84. The UP got them. And then the Southern Pacific was the very last one, which was 97, 96, 97.
Winnemucca. I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere. That should be what I use for the cover of. Should be Johnny Cash.
Yeah,
singing "I've Been Everywhere, Man." Or there's got to be a picture for "I've Been Everywhere, Man." Now I feel like I want to sing that song. Okay, so you went on Wednesday, May the 8th, and it was going from Evanston to Ogden, Utah.
Yes.
And you weren't even that interested in going until your son said he wanted to go.
Yeah, I mean, I was interested. I don't want to lie. Like, I really did want to go check it out, but I have so much other things I really should do, But when my 12-year-old son said, "Dad, I want to see the big boy," I said, "Yes, sir."
Yeah.
I said, "So do I. Let's go."
Absolutely.
I mean, once the minute he showed interest, I was like, "Yes, let's go." That's exactly what we're gonna do.
Yeah, exactly. It's a no-brainer once your 12-year-old son wants to do it. So, and who did it? Was just you and him, or was it you and him and a couple others, or?
Well, once I decided that I was going, I have this, I've the family car's this big brand new Ford Expedition, so it holds quite a few people. So I figured, hey, might as well pack in as many people that want to go that wasn't planning on going, because most of them's like, "Oh, I don't want to drive," and I was like, well, I bet you there's about at least 4 or 5 of my friends that if they knew that I was driving or they didn't have to drive, they'd probably go. So I just called a few guys up and said, "Hey, do you want to go?" And they jumped at the chance. So
who all went?
It was me, my friend Daryl Vest, Chris Brimley, Dalen Spears, my dad, and my nephew and my son.
Did you guys all meet someplace or something, or?
Chris and Daryl showed up to my house at 5 a.m. They met me here, and then I picked up my dad and my nephew, and then picked up my son and headed up the canyon.
So Chris Brimley's the guy that we're going to try to interview for the podcast.
Yeah, we need to get him on.
And he works at Exact Rail or the train. Where does he work?
He does. He's Exact Rail. I mean, Exact Rail, Train Life. They're right. They're all in the same. Exact Rail is obviously the manufacturer of the freight cars, equipment and such, and HO&N scale. And then Train Life is just kind of an online retail store that they just another online retail store, not just another, but the online retail store.
There you go. And does he work at Train Life or Exact Rail?
He's usually doing more of the designing and engineering of the Exact Rail stuff.
Okay, cool. Well, then we got to get him on. We got to get him on the podcast. We're going to make that a priority. So
yeah.
So you guys all pile into the Ford Expedition. What color is it?
Black.
Black, of course. You got big gummies on it, or just the stock ones that it came with?
Oh no, it's for cruising. It's just the stock ones.
So
in fact, I wanted to make sure that I didn't do anything dumb, so I didn't even buy a 4-wheel drive one. I bought a 2-wheel drive.
Oh man, I thought all those things all had to be 4-wheel drive.
I drove both of them, and the 2-wheel drive one has such a better turning radius than the 4-wheel drive. And yeah, I live in Utah. It does snow a ton here, but every 4-wheel drive vehicle I've ever had, which I've had quite a few, I've just around town, just driving. I've never really used 4-wheel drive, no matter how much it snowed. I've always 4-wheel drive has just been going off in the woods, and I don't really do that much anymore. So
yeah, okay, all right. So when did you first start? How far was it? Where did you decide to go to see it?
That was the big question, because I was kind of left up to me to what we were doing, and everybody was just going to kind of follow. And my original plan is I was just going to go camp out at the mouth of Weber Canyon, which is just outside Ogden, Utah, right at the last 10 minutes of its trip, and just sit there and wait for it and avoid everybody. And as I got closer, I just kept on thinking, you know what? Let's just go. Let's just go up the canyon. I want to see this. I want to see how ridiculous this is really going to be. And I am so glad that I did, because I think that that was a lot of the experience, was seeing how ridiculous it was.
Yeah, that was kind of why I wanted to talk to you by yourself, because you were pretty enthusiastic. Not that Otto wasn't enthusiastic, but he was doing it for work as well as enjoyment, and you were enthusiastic about the number of people that were there and the whole the whole atmosphere.
Yeah. Yeah, it was definitely pretty cool. So everybody was like, "Well, what are we doing? What's the plan?" I said, "I don't know. Let's just keep going." I talked to a good friend of mine, James Belmont, and I knew where he was going, and he's a renowned photographer. He's up there with Blair Koistra and all the other really top end photographers. But I asked him where he was going, and he told me where he was going and how to get there, and because I don't know the canyon very well on the highway side. I know the canyon really well railroad wise, but for the highway, I don't really know how to get to where I usually go on the train. I don't normally go up that canyon, but every once in a while, when my normal route on the Zephyr is blocked due to maintenance or Mother Nature or whatnot, we get rerouted up around that same route. So the Transcon is what they call it, the over across the Union Pacific Overland, and so I know it pretty decently railroad wise, but highway wise, I don't. So um, I asked him where he was going, and he told me how to get there and where he was going. And so we drove pretty much almost all the way up to Evanston, just outside of Evanston. Evanston is just over the border of Utah and Wyoming, and right before you go across the border on the railroad is a place called Wasatch, and it's a pretty famous place because the water tank's still there and everything. But I got to that point, and we flipped around and came back to a place called Castle Rock, which is really cool, big S curve coming out of a cut. Main 1 and main 2 are separated not only by lateral distance but vertical distance as well. And so we pulled off this exit that's right there in that area, and right when we passed it, I looked over there and said, "Holy cow, that's amazing!" There was, I bet you there's a couple hundred people there, and we got back to it, and I pulled in there, and we drove around in that area just for a minute, just to see everybody. And I was so impressed with how many people were just in that one area that I took a little live video, and I think I put it on the Fans of the Monitor's live page, one of the pages. I can't remember where I put it, but I went live there for a minute just to kind of show off. Look at this, guys. This is crazy. And it was really impressive. And just listening to everybody talking and how excited everybody was, that it's rare to see a group of that many people and that small of a space, so pretty claustrophobic like, and not anybody was upset.
Oh yeah,
It was impressive, and everybody was there for one reason, and we all knew what that reason was, and we just sat there and waited. And I took my work radio with me, so I was able to get on the right channel. And there's a few people with scanners and such, but I had their private channels and stuff, so I was able to listen to exactly what they were saying.
right.
And so I heard them come talking about, working together, and when they wanted the diesel to get into dynamics and, pull a little bit more air here or shove on me here or whatever, when they were, just talking operational. And all of a sudden you could hear them. They came around the corner, and boom, there they were. And it was just like that right when you started seeing the steam, because it was really cold. It was really, really cold. It was almost snowing. It was raining pretty hard, almost snowing. And so the steam show was amazing because, steam is a lot more visible in the cold air. But right when you started seeing the steam floating down the canyon, right out the cut before the locomotive, and then all of a sudden it popped out, and it was rather impressive. It was kind of in the distance, but you could still just see how big it was, and it was impressive. I was happy with the entire experience.
So
especially that first sighting.
And was that the first time you'd actually seen it in person?
No, when they drug it home from Pomona, I was working the night that they did at the station, and I remember they stopped in Salt Lake for a night, and I went over there and talked to Ed and the crew that was there when they were dragging it home. So I saw it then, but I haven't seen it since then. And
Right.
that was 5.5 years ago, 6 years ago.
So you say drug it home from Pomona Beach in California? Is that what you're talking?
Yeah, that was at the Steamtown. I believe it was. It was at a museum down in Pomona, California, and they scoped that one out because I guess it was in the best shape and the most complete, and that's the one they decided to restore.
And so you said Ed. You said Ed was there, and who is the Ed that you were speaking of?
Ed Dickens is the head honcho of the STEAM program for the Union Pacific.
Okay. And so you must have been quite popular if you were standing there with your work radio, and people must have started to realize, hey, this guy's connected somehow.
I tried to keep it down. I didn't really want to let that out too much, but I mean, it was in my pocket, so in my inside coat pocket. So I mean, it wasn't visible, and obviously, some people heard, things that were being said that wasn't coming over the scanner. So I think they did know there was, somebody there that had more information than they did. But I did. Nobody really made big notion of it.
Right. And what did your son think of it when he saw it?
Oh man, I honestly, that was probably my favorite part, to see how excited he was. He was just like, "Holy cow, this is awesome. This is so cool." And he's not a big. I mean, he likes trains. I mean, he's grown up around them with me and with my dad, and I mean, he's definitely been oversaturated just because, I think he kind of has a little bit of a love-hate thing with it too, because it's taken me away a lot during his, in life, but it's also provided, it's kind of the same as same as me growing up, but I don't think he has fallen in as love with it as I have.
Right.
But this definitely put it over the top. I mean, every time we've gone out and chased any of the steam team or steam locomotives in general, he gets pretty excited. So
that'd be just that whole canyon is probably just a good place to watch trains, period.
oh yeah, that's the transcontinental still to this day. There's more trains per hour through that stretch of railroad than probably anywhere else. I mean, I think down through the in the Southwest, the BNSF Transline or Transcon, I think probably is equal to it. But yeah, that's probably one of the busiest main lines in the West anyway.
How many trains a day do you think you'd see across there?
I wouldn't even know. I wouldn't even know how to guess. I a lot, enough to be fully satisfied as a rail fan to go check it out.
Right. And then the lines, like you say, right there at Wasatch, they're pretty close together. But then after that, they just kind of separate and they go all different. They parallel each other, but not by any stretch are they close together.
Yeah, they wanted to keep the grade on one of them. I mean, when they built it, or when they rebuilt it, they built it for directional operation, uphill and downhill, and so the uphill is definitely a lot more lot longer linear, just because they tried to keep the grade a lot less than the downhill. The downhill is definitely a lot shorter of a piece of track than the uphill. So that's why you get a lot of distance between the two here and there. But you can still see them.
Yeah.
In the same shot,
So the uphill one is the one with the more curves in it and everything, not the straight one. It's because there's one that's much more curvy and one that's a lot straighter.
Yeah.
So the one that's curvier is curvier. The one with the curves in it is the uphill, probably because you say it's longer, but they're trying to keep the grade from getting carried away.
You're right.
So where did you
keep it a little bit more ease?
Yeah. So where did you go after Wasatch?
Well, I honestly didn't think we were going to see it again, because all those people had one place to get on the freeway, and we were all trying to get to it at the same time. And honestly, I'm surprised nobody didn't get in. There wasn't any little minor fender benders, because everybody went from being super nice and cordial to each other to I want on the freeway first. But but even then, it wasn't as bad as it could be. You had a couple people that were pretty aggressive, and my nature is to trump them. So I became the aggressor, mostly just when somebody tried to cut me off, I definitely wouldn't let them.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But once we all got on the freeway, it was still kind of a bumper to bumper thing till we got moving. But I was surprised how quick we were able to catch up to it. And I kind of planned it in a way that everywhere I wanted to stop is I pulled off a set of bulletins, and bulletins are track bulletins. I was able to get a set of bulletins of the line, that if I was to like take a train up the line, it was all the information that pertained to the line. And there was a few slow orders up there specifically for like high wide equipment, and they considered the big boy high wide equipment because of the potential of it swinging out as being an articulated locomotive, the potential of it swinging out and not clearing certain pieces of equipment that were standing along the line. So it had some specific slow orders on the line that it had to slow down for, and they were really significant. They were like 10-mile-an-hour slow orders for pretty good stretches of track. And so I tried to get to those spots just before those, so the train would slow down to that 10 miles an hour for a period of time to hopefully give me enough time to catch back up to it.
Right.
And it worked. It worked, and it worked really well. And we were able to catch quite a few pacing shots of it.
Very cool. Very cool. So all right. So then once you get back on, what is it, 80? Yeah. Once you get back on 80, it's the track kind of leaves the freeway for a while. So where was the next place you saw it? Down at the next exit?
Yeah, I think it was the next exit. I can't remember. I think I want to call the place Emory. I think it was. We pulled over, and it was kind of just hey, I think I can pull over here and not have to completely get off the freeway. I have enough room to just jump. It was an off ramp, but I didn't go all the way down the off ramp. I left myself enough room to just jump right back onto the freeway, and in hopes to get ahead of everybody. So I parked back a little bit, and it was really nice because there's a nice big hill that we were able to climb up on, and we watched it, and it was a really cool shot. It was kind of far. It wasn't really close. We were quite far above it, but it was really cool to watch it just kind of creep down below, and that big panoramic type of a shot,
Yeah, and so okay, and were there a lot of people parked on the freeway then?
They had the highway patrol was up, and incident management was up, and they were actually patrolling the shoulders, and pretty much kicking everybody. Like there's big signs and rolling road signs that just do not park, and these guys were literally driving down the shoulders to keep people from parking on them. So no, there wasn't really anybody parked on the freeway.
So I don't know if I can ask this question the right way or get the words out properly. So did you get the sense then that the locals, like the state police and all the authorities in the local area, they obviously had some sort of idea of how big an event this was going to be as it came to their area? Because you say they weren't letting people park on the freeway and anything like that. So people must have had a sense of what a big deal this was going to be.
Oh yeah, they've known for quite a while. There's been planning. There's been quite a few little organizations been planning these events, not just the Union Pacific, but a couple like government and city organizations planning these events, and they knew how big this was going to be just by I think just the ticket sales for the promontory thing, the Golden Spike, the actual Golden Spike, how fast those sold out, and the demographic that they sold to, like. Most of those were sold to people out of the country.
Wow.
So when they figured they pulled that many people in from out of the country, they figured this is going to be pretty huge. I'd imagine they knew how big of a deal it was going to be.
It's pretty cool. It's cool about how, like you were saying, it's cool how excited people were and how the excitement. I think it would be cool to be part of it. When you think about how this massive locomotive was the main player,
right?
And then the challenge, the 844, the Challenger was like an afterthought, and it's impressive enough on its own.
Yeah, the 844, the Challenger actually is back in Cheyenne. It needs to go through. The Challenger is a 4664, so it's an articulated, and the 844 is a Northern. It's a 484.
Oh, okay.
So the Challenger was still back in Cheyenne, and like I said, it needs to be gone through. It's big inspections are due, and I think it needs quite a bit of work to get back up to the level that the Union Pacific wants to operate them at, especially compared to where 844 and the big boy is now.
Right.
It needs quite a bit of work to contend with those two. But the 844 is super famous. That locomotive's never been retired. It's been an active locomotive on the Union Pacific roster since the day it was built, and in and of itself is a very famous locomotive, and nobody really paid attention to it. I mean, I really appreciate that locomotive standing back and letting the big boy have its day, but it was really cool to be able to sit there and watch the 844. And yeah, I mean, you had the run of the place with it because nobody was really around it. Everybody was surrounded the big boy, you know.
So are you covered with foam or goo now?
Oh, look at this. Look at this. Bruce Kelly. Hang on. Bruce Kelly just walked into the studio. We're interviewing. I'm going to lock the studio now.
Oh, you didn't lock the studio.
We're doing a podcast because we're having a podcast because we're talking about the big boy and his adventures of the big boy. So feel free to pull up a seat and participate.
Boy,
let me tell you a tale.
Wow.
So where were we? Oh yeah, so Adam was chasing it.
Yeah, I saw the pictures.
So where were we, Adam? Okay, so you were talking about how impressive it was. So where'd you go after Emery?
Oh man, I have to remember I wanted to stop at Echo, and because Echo's a pretty famous little spot. That's kind of right where the tracks turn and really start heading up, really start hitting the grade pretty hard. And there's also a cool little town there at Echo that doesn't really. It's not really a ghost town, but it's kind of hard to describe. I mean, it wasn't really ever really a big town to begin with, but it was just a cool little place. And they planned on stopping there just to take a break, or I think they were going to check the water and just a quick maintenance stop to just check out the locomotive there, I guess. But it was advertised as a stop, so I knew as bad as I really wanted to see it at Echo, I knew that's where most of the locals were going to head to because it was advertised as a place you could come and look at it. Two, there was going to be just a lot of people in there, and I knew if I got in there, it was going to be really hard to get back out. And so I went just past Echo to a little overpass, and we caught it there, and it was a big, cool sweeping curve, and we caught it there, and got a good run by of it there, and then we jumped in the car and we really took off down the canyon. Then we got another really cool pace shot of it there's a part of the canyon that opens up to kind of like a big meadow type area, and we caught some really cool pacing shots of it there, and then we sped ahead quite far because my nephew and my son needed to use the bathroom pretty bad, so we hit a rest stop, caught that, tried to decide what we were going to do from there, and from there on all the way down to the mouth of the canyon, it got pretty tight and windy, and there really wasn't any place to pull off and take a look at it without being able to really catch back up to it. So we were trying to decide what we wanted to do. All those shots that in the rest of the canyon are the really, really cool shots of Weber Canyon. That a lot of the pictures that you see from the original Transcontinental is that's where those photos are taken. But like I said, it was just really tight and windy in there. So not only was it a little bit more dangerous, but it was all, with all the cars and such, there just really wasn't anywhere to catch it. And that's why we decided, okay, I did want to catch it at the mouth of the canyon, because right there at Uinta, there's a place, a little city called Uinta right at the mouth of the canyon. It's just really cool looking as it comes out of Weber Canyon. So I wanted to catch it there. And so we rushed all the way ahead and got into a really good location and caught it right there at Uinta, and that was the last time we saw it.
And so that Weaver Canyon, how far does it go then? Weaver Canyon? Like it goes from Ogden, Utah, all the way to Evanston, basically, or?
Pretty much. You got Weber Canyon and Echo Canyon, and Weber Canyon's pretty much from Ogden right up to Echo, and then the track turns, and it's Echo Canyon from Echo up to I think they call it Echo Canyon. I've always called it Echo Canyon, but it's Echo all the way up to Wasatch, and then from Wasatch it's just across the border into Evanston. So it's pretty much the whole route.
And so you were telling me that one of the cars is just full of water, or
it's a water purification system. The one of the first passenger cars in the train set has a full water purification system in it, so it's able to take water from just about anywhere and make it good enough to drink.
And so because they're really particular now about what water they put into the steam engine or into the boiler, which of course they didn't have when the locomotives were originally built. So one of the cars is just a water purification system.
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't even know that. Did you know that, Bruce?
No, I always thought they had one car for the generator to provide power to the rest of the train, but I didn't know about having a purification system.
That's really something.
Yeah, they've got that purification car, and then they've got the tool car, and the tool car is really cool because it's all but a full machine shop in there. It's a rolling machine shop,
right?
You know, and they've got the generator car too. But I mean, they got a rolling support system there. They can't do any major machining or rebuilding, but they could make a part pretty quickly if they needed to. You know, relatively insignificant part, but if something happened, they can fix it on the way.
Jeez, so they got a whole crew of guys ready to make repairs if needed. And did the whole thing go off relatively flawlessly, or?
Considering how fast they put that thing together, and I mean, a week prior, the rods were off, the cylinder heads were off. I mean, I was blown away how fast he pulled that thing together and got it moving. Like he delivered, man, and it was more than impressive. But as fast as they got it together and as smooth as the entire trip went, I was pretty impressed.
And by he got it together, you're talking about this Ed. What was his last name again?
Ed Dickens. I mean, I don't want. I mean, I give him not full credit, but enough credit that he drove his crew. You know, he has a whole crew of guys.
Yeah.
The entire group of guys, you know, led by Ed Dickens, they're legends at this point, man.
Huh. Man, oh man. So, and then once you guys got to Ogden, you headed back home. How long did it take you all that whole day?
I was back home. It was 12-hour day. I was home by 5.
Yeah, so you hit the road at 5 and you're back home by 5. Because you're not really that far away from Ogden, are you?
No, I'm about an hour and a half.
So, and do you know much about the big boy locomotive? Like, I mean, it was built in the 40s.
So, they were built. It was pretty much the last hurrah for the steam on the Union Pacific. It was more of, you know, I think Otto covered it pretty good when we were talking about it, but it was pretty much the war hero for the Union Pacific. You know, they got those to haul war traffic pretty much, you know, and I mean, and they were new enough at the end of steam that they lasted longer than they probably should have, you know, but there's no reason to not keep running them.
Yeah, well, the last one ran in 1961 or something like that.
Yeah.
So I mean,
which is pretty late.
It's pretty late, but they only really ran for 20 years. I mean, that's a heck of a thing to build that only runs for 20 years. I mean,
I'd agree.
132 feet long. Drivers are 66 inches in diameter. I mean, like the thing is absolutely, like, was it just massive as it went by?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, just the amount of, just the sheer mass of the thing rolling. I mean, anything that's that big moving is impressive. I mean, it doesn't really matter, but what it is, but that there is just, it was hard to like really gather everything that you know about what's happened in the last 5 years and put it all together as this thing's rolling by. It's like it was just kind of mind blowing, really. I mean, and I say it's like I just saw it for the very first time because we really did. But I've seen quite a few of the big boys. I've been around them. I know how big they are. I know how it's an impressive machine. None of them were supposed to ever run again. I mean, we had people in the steam team at one time that swore that there is no way, no possible feasible way that one of these would ever, ever, ever roll again, let alone run. And one just got rebuilt in 5 years.
5 years. Wow. I wonder how you would even figure out how to start with such a thing.
I don't know, man. I've built some steam locomotives in my life and rebuilt some and worked on quite a few, and it's an intimidating thing, even just a small one. I'm working on a small steam locomotive, a full-size small steam locomotive right now, and I've got it broken down into projects and certain, a certain methodology of how I'm going to do this and what we're going to do to get it running. And this thing pales. I mean, this thing is the amount of work that I'm going to do on this locomotive is probably what they did to the front truck of that locomotive.
Now, what's the locomotive you're working on?
It's the Rio Grande 223.
And what's the wheel configuration of it?
It's a 280, a little narrow gauge consolidation.
A 280. So it's pretty big. It's
a good size engine, but it's really, really small compared. I mean, I can barely fit in the thing.
Yeah. So so have you been anywhere near the cab of the big boy? Is it like a gigantic cab or?
It's an office. I mean, you could have a dance party in there.
Yeah. And how much?
It's like
what? It wasn't run by coal, was it?
Originally, yeah.
How much? It must have had some sort of mechanical conveyor belt or some way of putting the coal in because one guy couldn't shovel the coal in there.
Yeah, it was.
No, you physically couldn't throw a scoop of coal that far.
It was probably an auger that came from the tender.
Yeah, it was a steam powered stoker. Which is essentially an auger.
A steam powered stoker.
Yeah.
Bruce, was there much excitement about it where you were?
I don't. For me, I wasn't very excited about it. I mean, it was just some of the photos that were coming through and the videos were really poor, and people taking it in the sunlight, so you didn't really get to see the detail. And then a couple of them came through better, but a lot of people were excited about it, saying, "Yeah, this is great, this is great." But then I was going like, well, there's two engines. I'd rather just see the big boy, and I'd like to see the way it was when it was pulling 100 cars, and hear see the black smoke and everything else coming out of it. But with the double header and then that diesel engine behind it, it was like, okay, yeah, it's a.
Well, that wasn't possible. It's now the year 2019. The locomotive hasn't run for 50 years.
Oh yeah, well that's and somebody explained it to me. I forget who explained it to me. He says, yeah, but you got to remember, this is the first time outs, and they got to break it in first before they can start doing some really cool stuff with it.
Well, it was impressive enough, and I know that they tried to get it to Ogden. The goal was to get it to Ogden.
Yeah.
And once they got it to Ogden, they weren't too concerned with it after that point. Like, and the way he ran it, the way Ed ran the thing home, I really wish now that I could have chased it back, because they worked its guts out going home. From the videos I was watching, and I mean, granted, it still only was hauling just a handful of passenger cars, and that pales in comparison of a huge freight train. But they didn't baby it going home.
Oh,
they worked it to its potential with that situation.
I'd love to see it pull a coal drag or a container train.
Oh yeah, I'd like to see them bring that thing to its knees for sure.
Oh yeah.
Well,
I think that
just that it's running, I think is pretty cool. I mean, if we never see it running a coal train or or pulling a container train, and it's just all it ever does is what it's doing now, I'd be thrilled to see it just the way it is now, just
absolutely.
the massive size of it. So tell me a little bit about Cheyenne. Like, is there like some massive yard there where they work on all their steam trains, or what's the deal with Cheyenne?
It's one of the original back shops that they still have there, but it's nothing massive by any means. I think they've kind of run out of room with all the stuff that they have there now. But it's not. I mean, it's a cool shop. It's a cool facility, and people can go and check it out to some degree. I know they have given tours of the place and such, but I don't know what the parameters are to actually go there and get a tour by any means.
So there must be guys. There must be guys that live and work in Cheyenne specifically on the steam program for Union Pacific.
Yeah, the steam team's a full-time gig. The guys that are there are Union Pacific employees, and they are a full-time steam team guys.
Have you ever been there?
Yeah.
How many times? You've probably been there like 30 times, knowing you.
No, I've only been there a couple, honestly. I have a good friend that they moved to Cheyenne that has a he's actually the guy that started me with in the Heber Valley Railroad. His name's John Ermosh, and he has a shop up there called Wasatch Rail Contractors, and and he's always done steam restorations and stuff like that ever since Heber. And I know that they cosmetically restored the big boy that's on display in the park there in Cheyenne, but they aren't too far away. I don't know what the relationship is between them and the steam team or how much they get along, but I know at one time it was pretty decent.
So that behind the big boy, they were pulling some sort of some sort of tender between it and the 844. What was that between the two of them?
They're just they call them the canteens. They're just water bottles, just water tenders.
Okay,
extra water.
They're painted in modern Union Pacific colors. So are they but they're older, like, or are they newer equipment?
Those are old. I believe those are old tenders off some of the turbines.
Yeah,
some of those big turbines that they used.
Okay, and the turbines, and so they're full of water. And so, was there any place along the way that they stopped to pick up more water?
I listened on the radio. They said something about getting water at Echo, and they had, but they didn't. I don't think they got much because it was all downhill and they weren't really working too hard. So.
And do we know anything about the engineers that ran these locomotives?
Ed Dickens was in the big boy, and I'm not sure exactly who was running the 844.
And so this locomotive you're working on, this 484 or 480, that's a pretty big locomotive you're working on. I wouldn't say that's particularly small.
The one I'm working on?
Yeah.
Oh.
You said 480, didn't you?
It's a 280.
280, all right, 280. Are you qualified to run it?
I would consider myself qualified, yeah.
Do you have to get a special license to run steam locomotives?
I guess it depends on the railroad, but most of the railroads you just have to be qualified on the route itself, the physical characteristics of the line. And I'd imagine you do have to pass a basic mechanical knowledge test of the locomotive.
Yeah, because this is a skill. If they're going to keep the big boy and the 844 running, this is a skill that they're going to have to pass on through the generations and keep guys qualified to run these things.
Oh yeah. It's a lot different than running a diesel locomotive in most. Running the train isn't different. Running the locomotive is different. You know, there's you when you run the train, you handle it in certain ways. Using your air brakes and power and with a diesel locomotive, you usually end up having dynamics of some sort, dynamic braking. But with a steam locomotive, you're doing more than just running a train, but you're also operating this locomotive because it actually is. You have to keep it. The best way to describe it really is just you're tuning it as you're running it. Because so there's so much more involved in just getting as much out of that locomotive as possible by different valve settings and throttle settings and draft of the fire and just different characteristics of each locomotive. It's definitely an art. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, a very learned skill. And it's not like there's lots of places to practice anymore. I mean,
No, you kind of have to work your way into some of these places that have a steam locomotive to get any throttle time. That's for sure.
yeah, exactly. Wow. And do we know if they're going to do anything else? They must be going to continue to run the big boy. I mean, that's a lot of work just to run it once from Cheyenne to Ogden and back.
I know that they announced a system-wide tour with the thing, or they talked about it. I don't know if it's a full-on announcement or if it was just some stuff that I was hearing. But I was hearing it from people that would be the ones making the decisions. So
now they're not going to be able to take the big boy everywhere. It's not going to go on certain tracks, right? Because of its weight.
I think that it will probably have a lot of places that it can't go, but I'm pretty sure there's a lot of places that it can.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of people have kind of underestimated the railroad infrastructure as of 2019. I think that it's not quite. I don't think the weight is the biggest issue as far as the just overall clearances.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say clearances, when you look at the big boy compared to say modern diesel locomotives such as an SD70 Ace, the big boy really isn't much bigger. But what it does do that an SD70 doesn't is it articulates, and that boiler swings out when it goes around a curve. So you have a really rigid section of that locomotive that doesn't follow a curve as well as other things do. And my opinion is that will be what limits it.
Yeah, because the boiler itself must be, the length of the locomotive is 85 feet. Overall, it's 132 feet. So just the locomotive without the tender is 85 feet. So the boiler must be like 75 feet or something like that. And I mean, it's just one solid mass.
Right. And a guy would say, well, there's 89-foot flat cars. But what they don't realize is those 89-foot flat cars have two pivot points at the ends of each of the ends of the car, whereas this one would have a pivot point at the rear and in the middle. So you've got the entire front 45 feet or 40 feet or 30 feet, whatever it actually is, of that rigid piece of metal that swings out, that is a lot more, that was going to need a lot more clearance than most things.
It says the maximum speed is 80 miles an hour. That'd be something to see, that thing. I wonder, on the way back, I think you said it got up to like 50 miles an hour or something like that.
I think they pushed it up to 50, 60 miles an hour for sure. I mean, I know I've seen the Northern, the 844. I've seen that thing pushing every bit of 80 miles an hour, but I don't really. The general rule of thumb for a steam locomotive is it's good for, as whatever the driver size is usually the prime operating max speed of the locomotive. So that's always been a really good rule of thumb. So if it has 80-inch drivers, it's good for 80 miles an hour. So this one has 62, 65-inch drivers, something like that. So I would imagine that its optimum speed would probably be right in there. When it was designed, it's not really designed for speed, so it was more designed to just haul a lot of weight. And as long as it did that, I think everybody'd be happy.
So how big are the drivers on the locomotive you're working on for the restoration? How big are the drivers on the locomotive? Oh, geez, I haven't got my microphone. I'm on mute.
I was sitting there. Wait a minute.
I'm talking and nothing's happening. Now I know what it's like to be like Bruce Wilson, the moderately agitated mail boy.
Oh, you had me scared. I thought my internet was going down again.
You're just about okay. You got to go. I can tell you're getting itchy to go. We're almost done. So how fast?
No, I'm good.
How big are the drivers on the locomotive you're restoring?
36-inch drivers.
So would it be good then for like 36 miles an hour?
It's good for 200 miles an hour in reverse.
So, but
no, I wouldn't. I honestly wouldn't want to go much more than 30 in it anyway. You know.
Yeah, All right, so the little ones you're working on, the 7.5-inch gauge track, but 2.5-inch scale.
You nailed it.
I
Yes.
did finally.
Wow.
Yeah, don't get used to it though.
No, I'm not.
How fast would you get them going?
I don't know if I'd go much more than about 6 miles an hour, 7 miles an hour.
Yeah. Yeah, you get too fast, you'll come, especially on a curve, you'll flip it.
You'll flip. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. You got your 7.5-inch gauge. Have you had yours out this year yet, Kelly?
No, I've got to get a new battery for it. It's dead.
What kind of battery? What kind of battery does it take?
A regular car battery.
Okay. So how long? That's good. Just whip down to the local
I'm
auto.
going to. Well, the problem is I have to get it out of the car barn up onto the steaming bay so I can get underneath it to release the clips that hold the body on the shell, and lift the shell off, and then go and pull the battery out. So I'm trying to get it to charge enough so I can get it started to get it up onto the steaming bay.
And if you can't get it started, what do? Just drag it out?
I'm gonna have to push it, and that's a pain because it's got the hydraulic pump on it, and if you push it too fast, it freezes up. So you have to push it real slow. So it'll take about a half an hour or more to get it up to the steaming bay.
So how far does it take you, Adam, to get to Medford, Oregon?
Oh man, Train Mountain.
Yeah, no, just Medford, Oregon. Medford, Oregon.
Medford, Oregon.
I'm just putting that in relation. I know where Train Mountain is.
Okay.
And I know it's pretty close to Medford. So, I'd imagine it's probably about 10, 11 hours.
Yeah,
10 hours or so.
You better get ready for a trip up there. Sounds like Kelly's going to be in a mess before too long. It's going to need some help. So, is there anything else? Is there anything else we need to tell everybody about the big boy, or did we pretty much cover it? Have we managed to help everybody understand the excitement? I mean, we know Bruce wasn't excited about it. Bruce.
Oh yeah, I know. I'm not a Steam guy.
Well, it doesn't matter. I would love to have seen it. I would absolutely have loved to have seen it. I would love to have been part of the excitement, like Adam says. I think it would be cool just to be there. To see all the carrying on. Like, how could you not? It's like people that don't like going to Sturgis or they don't like going to the Indianapolis 500. Like, don't say you don't want to go until you've been.
That's true.
The thing,
like I was saying before, is like as exciting as it was to see the steam engine, I really think it was as much fun to see how many people was going nuts over it, and how nuts people were going over it. It's like, oh man. Yeah, I mean, it was really impressive just to see how the sheer number of people that did whatever they had to do to go check it out. I mean, I had it pretty easy. I mean, the thing's in my backyard, so to speak. But people came. I felt really cool, and because it was in my backyard, and I didn't have to plan. I mean, people were planning this trip for 2 years, and I planned it in 2 days.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like it was kind of a spur of the moment thing for me, so I was pretty grateful for that, and I think it kind of humbled me to realize that there was a lot of people that have what effort they took to actually come see this.
It's like Tom Stock though. Some people they're going to have to travel miles and miles to get to Tom Stock. Other people it'll just be a couple hours away.
Right.
That's another big. That's the next big event in the train world is Tom Stock 2020. The last run was. It's amazing that these things only ran for like 20 years, and they were built to haul freight over the Wasatch Canyon from Wyoming.
Yeah, they put a silent H in there.
I know, fascinating, eh? And they've been
Wasatch.
Number 4014 completed its final revenue run on July 21st, 1959. Just hours before the last revenue run by any big boy, it had traveled 1 million miles during its 20 years of revenue service. Union Pacific retired number 4014 on December 7th, 1961. All of the big boys were retired by 1962, their duties assumed by the diesel electrics and gas turbine electric locomotives. Union Pacific donated it to the Southern California chapter of the Railway and Locomotive Historical Society in Pomona, California, where it became one of 8 big boys preserved around the United States. I wonder where some of the other ones are.
Oh, you've got one in, you had that one there. You have one in Cheyenne. There's one in Denver. There's one in Omaha. There's one in, yeah, that's a good question. I'll have to start thinking about it again.
You know what I don't. You know what I don't like, Bruce. This would be right up your alley. This is me complaining about something. This is right up your alley. Complaining about something. You know what? You know what I don't like. There's one in Strasburg Railroad, in Strasburg, Pennsylvania. You know the thing I don't like about steam locomotives is when they're donated and they're left to. You know, they're donated and you're supposed to look at them, but they just get more and more run down, and it just turns into this big old hunk of metal that is of no interest because it looks like nothing.
Yeah. We're dealing with that. We're dealing with that right now. We've got an engine from one of the original railroads going from Medford to Jacksonville, which is 12 miles. And somebody bought it. They rebuilt it, got it running, and this husband and wife bought it for the restaurant, and it's sitting out in a field. The wood's rotting away. All the gauges have been stolen, and it's a shame because the condition that we saw it in when they took over, when they brought it up here, it was in mint condition, ready to run, and now it may be saved, it may not be.
Yeah.
Which one is that?
It's the Rogue Valley Railroad, number 1.
Okay.
And now it's just a pile of junk.
Well, it's getting close to it. We're making phone calls to say, hey, we'd like to bring it to the park to have it restored, put back into the condition it was before, but we don't know what's going to happen. They paid a lot of money for it.
I should try to get a hold of Ed, see if Ed Dickens could be interviewed on for the podcast, because it must be a fascinating story, because it was almost 60 years in between when it last ran, 59 years, 9 months, and 10 days between when the last time it ran and when they refired it. And they only successfully test fired it on April 9th, 2019. Wow, so it's like they only just barely got the thing running before they did this trip from Cheyenne to Ogden. Man, they must have been on pins and needles running this thing down the track.
Oh, I can imagine. I imagine the first, because they did a quick run with it. I don't know exactly where they went, but I know they was mostly at night. But I can only imagine the first few miles of that thing just being like, oh man, okay, we're getting further away from the shop. We're getting further away from the shop.
Yeah.
This is going to be that much worse to drag it home, and because I know the feel. I mean, the only thing that I can even relate to is like getting one of these little engines done and taking it on one of these big trip. Like when I say a big trip, like on a bigger track, and you end up a half a mile away from the steaming bay or something, and all of a sudden something goes wrong, and you're like, well, hell, I am way far away to push this thing all the way back, so you end up having to tow it back in. But that's just a big engine, man, and it's just to even be able to have seen it or be a part of it, be a part of the restoration, and then actually see it run, as I can't even imagine the gratification that those guys had.
Bruce, this is something that I just thought of while Adam was talking. And
Okay.
This podcast thing is so cool because Adam and I met. And I mean, Adam has so much knowledge and so much experience with the railroad. I'm so lucky, Adam, to have met you because, I mean, like I said before, you were running SD70s when you were 19, and you're a conductor on Amtrak, and you're building 2.5-inch scale locomotives, and you just love trains, and you have so much knowledge. We're so lucky to know you.
Well, I feel pretty lucky to be involved with you guys. You guys have a pretty solid little thing going, and I'm just happy to you guys let me be a part of it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. All right. Well, Bruce, now that you're here, we're going to make you do the email address.
Oh boy, I forgot all about that.
Hey, you wouldn't have been banging down the door. You wouldn't have been banging down the door.
No, you left the door unlocked. I opened it up and I went, oops. So if you want to contact us through email, you can get us through email by get my tongue working. Jeez.
I hope Bruce the moderate.
All right, so
I hope Bruce the moderately agitated mailboy isn't listening to this.
Yeah, right. So you can reach us through Modeler's Life. That's modelers at gmail.com. Oh man, it's a long day. And that's one L, like in Apple.
Locomotive.
Oh, locomotive. Yes, locomotive. Not two L's as Kelly.
All right. You want some help?
God.
That's modellerslife at gmail.com. That's modelers with one L, like locomotive, not two L's like klutz.
Oh, klutz one L, I think.
Yeah, well, the way I spell it now, it's got two. It's because it's klutz.
Klutz. I'm never gonna get it right.
You're never gonna get it right. Exactly. What else has two? What else has two L's in it? We need some Cadillac. Yeah, but locomotive has one L. That's perfect. We need something. We need some other railroady thing that has two L's.
Two L's in it.
Okay, and seeing as how Kelly you screwed that up so bad, we're gonna make you do the last part as well. So are you gonna be ready? Okay. Are you gonna be ready?
I'm ready. Oh, I've had one ready.
Okay, that you got ready. Okay, Adam, I think we covered it all, eh? This is going to be pretty cool when you hear this, buddy.
Yeah, I'm excited.
So this is Monday that this show is released. We're on a Monday. We're listening to it. And then the next one, the Patreon show, is with Otto Vondrak and Adam Pinales discussing the big boy. So it's going to be a big boy double header that week.
Wow.
That'll be
really cool. It was a big boy doubleheader last week.
Exactly. It was a big boy doubleheader last week. So that's cool.
Yeah.
And remember, it's always next week. It's always next week or next month on Modeler's Life anyways. We have a website, modellerslife.com. Go there and you'll find out a bunch more cool stuff about us. Okay. So remember, a modeler's life is considered marginally adequate by 6 out of 10
proctologists.
What?
What's a railroady thing, Adam? What's a big boy thing? Locomotives, steam locomotive engineers.
Yeah, steam locomotive engineers.
I was going to say steam shop gophers.
There you go. Yeah. Let's try again. All right, we're going to go again. Yeah, we're going to go again. We're going to
cut that out, Lionel.
No, I'm not cutting it out. It's we don't. That'll all be edited out. All right, Adam, you're up, buddy.
All right.
Kelly went up. He was three pitches. Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, I know. Right, I was out.
So remember, a modeler's life is considered marginally adequate by 6 out of 10
steam shop gophers.
Perfect.
Yeah, that's good.
Everybody needs a good gopher.
Yeah, exactly.
While in Busted Knuckle, guests of a Modeler's Life podcast stay at the Casa del Sol Motor Court and Inn, where late-night dancing at the Rumba Room is a magical event to be experienced.
It's another Lincoln Homer.